All right, what is up, everybody? Shadow Scout 0013 here, coming in for another unit breakdown slash list build of Director Orson Krennic, and we're gonna kind of talk about him, his command cards, and a lot of different lists. I think I got 5 different ones to kind of show what he can do and maybe how he fits into certain things. Obviously, you don't have to use these lists or anything like that, but you can maybe even use them for an outline for a list that you might like. And I'll just kind of talk about the command cards and stuff like that for him so that you have a better understanding. He's not used very much, and he's very niche in what he does and kind of where you'd put him. I don't have him. I have an extensive Empire um, amount of units. I have an extensive Empire cache of minis. I don't know. I have an extensive Empire faction collection of units, and I don't have him because I never feel like I'm ever going to use him. And if I ever do, I try to proxy him with Veers. But that is me, and yeah. But I'll talk about him, and a lot of people do like him. It's just not my flavor. But first, before we start, I just want to go ahead and show you. If you haven't headed to the Discord, head there now. It's free, it's easy, and I mean, all you got to do is just chat along, ask questions. If you are a commission painter, this is where you can put up your work and show everybody. If you've got questions about lists or ideas, come on over to the Legion faction lists over here and just ask questions or talk or post lists that you might have, and we'll kind of talk about things that work or don't work. And I even think that, let's see, where was it? Uncle Owen goes with Battle Ready Gaming, and he's in here. He talks about the list and, you know, maybe what goes well together, and we helped him in the last video he did, which was really awesome to see. And that's so cool that, you know, people are getting really good ideas from this place. And if you play Legion on TTS, I'm usually looking for a game on some Tuesdays and Thursdays and stuff. So yeah, feel free to join up and come on over there. Head on over also to Clan of Shadows, where we've got the logo now, and I'm trying to work on some order tokens for everybody. But you can head over here and check out what we have. You're going to get things here early. For the most part, I'm trying to post on Sunday or Mondays the video for the week so that you can have plenty of time to watch it. Sometimes, like this past weekend was, you know, Thanksgiving weekend and my wife's birthday, so I was really busy celebrating, so I'm trying to get this done on Wednesday, which is, you know, yesterday if you're watching it when I release it. And also, it's really cool to see some of you guys signing up for the workout app that I have. It's $15 a month, and basically you get 3, 4, 5, and 6-day week workout programs. So if you don't have a lot of time to work out, you know, there's at least different programs for you. There's also 30-minute programs in case you don't have a lot of time and you're kind of short on days. There's corrective exercise programs in case you've ever injured yourself and you're trying to get right back into it, or you're a little bit sore somewhere and you need to just kind of take it easy. There's at-home workouts, and if you do sign up and you want more at-home workouts, just message me and I'll be able to send you more. There's abs and core in case you just wanted to do that. There's cardio circuits in case you just wanted to do that. You're going to get all future programs I come out with. There's videos of every workout and descriptions of every workout and exercise, as well as coaching videos to help you with understanding the different variations, and then 120 different recipes, anywhere between Mediterranean, vegan, keto, anything like that, and different ways to track your progress. Look at the graphs and see how you're progressing. And then, yeah, if you've got any questions, you're always welcome to message me and ask me. All right, let's get right back into it. So, Director Orson Krennic. He's great because he has Cunning and Compel. That's really mostly probably what you're going to use him for. And he does great with Death Troopers, because with the Entourage Death Troopers, when you lay down maybe like his 1-pip, you still, even though you're not putting any orders out on the field, you still are able to give the Imperial Death Troopers an order from Entourage. It's kind of like direct, but only specifically to the Imperial Death Troopers. And he's got Sharpshooter 1, which is nice because he only rolls 3 dice. It's a single rainbow. It's Pierce 1, and it surges to crit, so it's not bad. It's, you know, a pretty decent pistol. Still only range 1 to 2. He's got 6 health, which is nice. He's only Courage 2. He does surge the defense with white defense dice. He only rolls 1 black dice in melee. So again, he's not going to be a fighting character. He's got 2 command slots, which is really nice, and a gear slot. So if he needs to be a little bit more helpful, he can be. With Compel, basically after another friendly unit at range 1 to 2 rallies, if it's suppressed but not panicked, it can gain a suppression token, perform a free move action. So what would happen is if, you've got anyone, if it doesn't have to be core, kind of like Commander Vader only does this to core, but if a unit at range 1 to 2 let's just go with snows. So if snows have a suppression on them and you rally and they keep it, they are suppressed, but they're not panicked. So what you can do is immediately give them a suppression token. So now they'll have 2, but they can do a free move action, in which case that can trigger steady. And then you have a whole nother action to maybe take a dodge or anything like that. But there's no way of being able to take an aim or action and then compel. You have to use compel before you do anything else if you do want to compel another unit. So that could be easy. Maybe if you do have snows and they're suppressed, you compel them. They can move up, take a little pot shot, and then do an action to move back so that they stay in cover. So yeah, that's kind of going to be how compel works. It's immediately after you rally. You can't do anything else before that. Cunning. So that's really nice, obviously, because whenever you lay down one of his specific command cards, you're going to be able to go first. You will have priority if there's a tie. And yeah, that is basically all the little stats on his command card. We'll take a look at his 1-pip. So his 1-pip is only going to be given to him, and then you can... So I was wrong earlier. It wasn't like ploy, but... or whatever it is. But you do have... an order for him, and then with Entourage, you can give it to the Death Trooper. So you already have 2 orders out. And then at the start of the activation phase, you can place 3 random order tokens from your order pool face down on the card, and you can look at them at any time. And when you withdraw an order from the order pool, you can choose one of these order tokens on the card instead. So basically, maybe if you played this card, you might have one if there's a tie. You put one on Orson Krennic, and then you put one on the Death Troopers from Entourage. You've got 3 random little order tokens, and at least you know what they are. So if, you've got to go with a unit that is like a core, and maybe you got one of the cores that are in here, instead of drawing from the back, you can just take that order off of Voracious Ambition and go with that instead. It's kind of nice because, especially if you run him with Dark Troopers, you've got 4, if you run with double heavies of Dark Troopers, then you have 4 heavy tokens in your bag. The chances of you being able to get one on this card is pretty high, especially since you might only have like 7, maybe 8 activations on the field, but then you've got 9 or 10 in the bag. The chances of you grabbing one, especially after you've already gotten rid of 1 to possibly 2 orders, it's going to be pretty good. So that's pretty nice. I think this is his bread and butter. A lot of reason why people tend to bring him is because Deploy the Garrison, his 2-pip, is given to 2 troopers, and it could be given to Darks. It can be given to any trooper, even creature troopers. So at the start of the activation phase, you can choose up to 2 friendly trooper units that have face-up order tokens, and each chosen unit may perform a free standby action. Sadly, it still limits you to 2 friendly trooper units that have face-up orders, because maybe with the 2 troopers, you with the list that I have, there's 2 different entourages. So you'd have Moff Gideon being able to entourage to a Dark, and then you have Director Krennic, if you did have Death Troopers, being able to give an order to a Death Trooper unit. And then you can also give these, you still have 2 orders to give out, so maybe you give another one to the other Dark Trooper unit that you would have, so that could be possibly 3 if you had Death Troopers. And then maybe you give the other order to Moff, just because. Well, you can still only choose 2 units that have face-up order tokens to gain free standby. So you're probably going to give it to the Dark Troopers because they're not going to be able to get that suppression off, or suppression. They're not going to be able to get that standby token off with suppression because they don't have courage at all, so they can't gain suppression. So that's a great way to be able to keep the standby on them. And unless they're force pushed, then that standby goes away. But for the most part, this is going to be great on Darks. But any other time, it's just nice to have that free standby action, because then they can fire, and then you'd be able to go with them, and then they can aim and shoot again. So it's just such a nice card. But you'd have to attack using the standby before your activation starts. So you wouldn't be able to activate and, shoot and all that stuff and keep that standby, obviously, or, yeah. But having that free standby is really, really nice. Now, Annihilation Looms. It's great with darks, again, because they don't gain suppression. And you would give it to Director Krennic and 2 units. So if you don't have Moff and you only have maybe Director Krennic and 2 Dark Troopers, maybe you give it to Krennic and both, Dark Troopers. And then each unit gains a suppression token unless it's round 5 or 6, which, if that's the case, each trooper unit is going to gain 2 suppression tokens. So... and that's going to be really nice, because then you can just suppress the heck out of whoever it is with the darks, because they're going to go twice in the turn and just keep adding more suppression. So this can come in handy, but you need a way to get suppression off of your own units. Now let's take a look at a few of the command upgrades that you could bring on him, or that I would bring on him. Aggressive tactics would be okay, depending on maybe who else you are bringing, maybe, if you can get some extra orders out, because you're really going to benefit with aggressive tactics if you have more than one unit getting your order. So at least with his 1 pip, there's 2 people getting it if you have Death Troopers, because the Entourage is going to be able to give them an order, and then Krennic's going to gain an order, and he doesn't need the Surge token, and neither does the Deaths. So, and depending on the list, if it's mostly shores, and you've got like a shore gun line, then by all means, that could be really, really good. And so I'll just real quick build that out for you. Most of the time, you're going to see kind of like something similar to the Scarif, where you've got a good, solid gun line here that gives out some suppression, especially with the mortars. And then another pairing was usually with Bossk, because Bossk is also a suppressive weapon. And Hunter and targeting scopes usually is the best, and that's the bare minimum. With Krennic, you're going to have some Death Troopers, and since with Entourage, a Death Trooper unit does not count towards the maximum. So you could technically have 4 of these if you truly wanted, and you're going to bring the config to be able to shoot at range 4 and suppressive. So you're going to be able to do a ton of damage with that. We're just going to say you bring... 3 of them. And maybe with the other shore troopers, maybe just bring a few medics. So that way your deaths can do a lot better. And then maybe, like I said, you wanted to bring aggressive tactics on him, and that leaves you with 3 points left. So you could do kind of whatever you wanted. But those, when you're giving out orders, you're probably going to be giving them out to the shores if you can. With the fact that you can... with Annihilation Looms, give it to Krennic and 2 other troopers. You can give it to both shores, and they can just, coordinate to the mortars, in which case you're going to have 4 of the units get in order and can gain a surge. But honestly, it's not like a top 3 for me. The improvised orders is probably going to be top 3 for sure. Then maybe even top 2. And then lead by example is going to be another one, because he has no way of getting off suppression, and you even have a command card that gives suppression, not to mention the amount of shooting that will be done at you. So lead by example is probably going to be one of the best ones to give him. And like I said, improvised orders would also be another good one. Strict orders, maybe, but for the most part, Death Troopers have Discipline 1, so when you're issued an order, you can remove up a suppression token already. And... with strict orders, you might be able to pull off another suppression. If they have 2, then you can just take off the 2 by the time that you go with them. But, that's really it. I'd probably just say lead by example and improvised orders are the top ones to really give him. And then, electric binoculars are probably going to be the other thing that I give him. I don't really use portable scanners in Empire because they want to shoot a lot and they already have red dice saves. So you're trying to do as much firepower damage as possible. So that's why the electric binoculars could work. especially giving electro binoculars to him so that he can give maybe the Death Troopers an aim. And that way they can just recover and shoot instead of having to take an aim and shoot if they've already spent their config. So that way you don't have to. That way you get another shot with suppressive at range 4. So that's really nice. And that's, the main thing that I would. That's like a good little build for him. If you did want to give him and fully stack him out, he'd be 96 points. But yeah, I mean, that's not too bad. And maybe for a gear slot, okay, so maybe instead of the DLT-19, maybe you wanted to go with the DTF-16 and gain another compel. So that way you can kind of spread out your compel to be a little bit farther around, because with the DTF-16, you gain compel. And now if maybe you keep one of the Death Troopers with the DLT next to Krennic so that he can entourage them, and then maybe keep one of these other Death Troopers on like the outsides on your flanks so that you can make sure everything in the middle is covered by range 2 so that no matter what side you're on, you can compel. Even Bossk can be compelled because it doesn't say it has to be a core. It can be anyone. But yeah, that is a fun little thing with him. That's how I usually would build him out, is to be somewhat of more supportive with Inspire 2 and Spider 1. And then he's got Compel, Cunning. So you've got quite a bit of words, and it makes him better whenever you add a little bit of those to it. But yeah, okay. So that's like a little suppressive, fun list to play. I've now got him in a 10 activation list with the Inquisitors, because being able to use his 2-pip to give the 5th brother and the 7th sister a standby is awesome, especially after Enrage 2. So if the 5th brother has 2 wounds, his courage is null, and he gains charge. So if he were to gain a standby while he's got 2 wounds, they're not going to be able to get stripped off by suppression. So that's really nice. And he can, choose to sling his lightsaber at range 1 to 2, and then when it's his turn, he can just move or double move and gain charge, and he's got tenacity, so he'd be able to roll 6 dice, pierce 1, ram 2, because you're probably going to be making if it's range 2, you're going to be making a full move and then another move, and then you'd probably, if you're within range 2, that's going to be best. If you're at range 2, you're not going to quite make it, because, a range or a speed 2 moves, I think 5.9 or 5 point, something like that, so you're not going to quite make it to a full range 2. So hopefully you're within that, because charges after a move, you wouldn't be able to force push and then charge. So yeah. And then the 7th sister, I have a lisp for some reason today, and I don't know why. I'm so sorry, guys. So the 7th sister, and if you have a lisp, yeah, it's fine. Like, that's just me. So 7th sister, I have Inquisitorious training on her with tenacity and force push. With the 5th brother, I have seize the initiative in case you did want to give him an order. So like, the command cards that I have are Voracious Ambition, Deploy the Garrison, and then I've got the 5th brother's 3-pip, the sister's 3-pip, and then the teamwork, or permanent, kind of like somewhat teamwork, would you question me, card, and then the sister's 1-pip. So if you ever were to lay down Voracious Ambition and you did seize the initiative, you'd give it to Krennic, the 5th brother, and the Death Trooper unit would all have at least an order. And then maybe you've pulled another operative in there, so at least maybe the 7th sister is in there. And then the only thing left are some extra, strike teams and shores. But at least everyone, it's 10 fully stacked units. I shouldn't say fully stacked, but heavily stacked, because it's only got the heavies. Fully, I think, would include the personnel, if you want to get technical, I guess. But you do have, 2 shores with the heavies. You've got 2 sniper strike teams. You have a Death Trooper unit with the DLT, comms relay, and the config. So that way, with Entourage, if you did want to give an order, so with the Death Troopers having comms relay, you could Entourage the Death Troopers. They could comms relay to the 7th sister, so that she gets an order, and then the 5th brother can do seize initiative, so they both have an order, especially if you do the Voracious Ambition, so that way your 1 commander and your 2 operatives have the order, so the only thing left in your bag would be the core and special forces. So that's a great way to make sure that your operatives basically have an order every round, because that would be the only 1 card that doesn't give them an order. So that's just a great way to make sure that your operatives always have an order with this specific list. And then I've got Krennic with lead by example and electro binoculars. And then, like I said, I've got 2 sniper strike teams and then 2 shores with the T-21B and mortars. So, not quite a heavy suppressive list, but it can be because, again, she's going to have Demoralize 1 to give out suppression. They've got the config to make it a suppressive weapon. The mortars are suppressive. And, yeah. And then with her 3-pip, she can give out 2 suppression. And then with Deploy the Garrison, you're going to give possibly these 2 guys in order. And, give them to it at the right time, especially if they're in melee. Giving them Deploy the Garrison when they can't gain a suppression in melee, unless, it's like the dewbacks that have a suppressive melee weapon, or maybe the bugs at some point will have a suppressive weapon in melee. Because I think their Force Pike is suppressive, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is, yeah. So everyone's going to correct me in the comments anyway. Okay, so let's keep going. So you have Callus with improvised orders and the bow staff, which I think is the most common thing you're going to wind up seeing. You got IG-88 with hunter and targeting scopes. Again, very, very similar to Bossk, but not suppressive. Is just nice, pierce, I guess, if you are at range 3 rather than 4, unlike Bossk, which has a range 4 pierce and suppressive, but it's not bad. Iden Versio with hunter and a loadout of offensive push, because they're both the same price. Situational awareness, and then Iden's sniper rifle, and then loadout with her repeater. So usually how I do it is if she's got her sniper rifle, I usually stick with hunter. And if you're bringing her repeater, I usually bring offensive push. And I keep situational awareness on there because she has nimble and quick thinking. So anytime you do quick thinking, you're going to gain an aim and a dodge, and then you can shoot. And then you've got the dodge for the rest of the round. And you can cancel crits with it. And then ID10 gives you shield 1 so that you'd be able to, again, cancel 2 crits if you needed to. And then recover at some point, especially with her 2-pip. If you do bring her 2-pip, it just depends on what you want. I've got the Inferno Squad with, Hunter as well. And Inferno Squad Del Miko, I should say, would be able to take off 2 wounds off IG-88 so that they synergize really well together. And then 2 strike teams in case you did want to play her tactical strike card. And then 2 shorts with the T-21B and the DF-90 mortar. This list also allows you to be able to... Oh, wait, sorry. This doesn't have Krennic in there. I'm so sorry, guys. My bad. We'll skip that one. Let's get to the Krennic Iden gunline, not the Callus. Man, my bad, guys. So Krennic has the loadout that I usually like, which is improvised orders, lead by example, and electro binoculars. First full 96, you've got the Death Troopers with the DLT, comms relay, and the config. You've got Iden with the same exact, configuration that I usually put her out with. The same Inferno Squad I just said with Hunter. You have Bossk instead of IG, because IG would be 5 more points than Bossk with the same loadout. So that's why I have him. And then Shores and the Mortar. And could also, if you're trying to make it suppressive, Bossk, again, being suppressive. The Mortars being suppressive. The Death Troopers config being suppressive. Iden has a 2-pip that allows her to have a suppressive gun. So you will be handing out a lot of suppression on here. And I've got Lying in Wait, Tactical Strike. I've got Concussive Blast and Deploy the Garrison. It is a tough choice because, Bossk, his 2-pip allows him to have 2 attack actions. So it's pretty tough. But, you could probably be more aggressive with Iden, and since you do have another commander, you can now infiltrate with her. If you didn't have Krennic and you just had Iden, you wouldn't be able to infiltrate. And so that's another reason why, having another commander is great with Iden, because that gives her the ability to be a little bit more versatile. In this gun, if you did just bring the sniper rifle, if you do play this, at least she's got another gun to use. That's got more of a dice pool to it than just her sniper rifle. And that's also got blast, scatter, and suppressive. And since it's range 1 to 2, maybe if you're at range 1 and you use that, you can add an extra 3 white dice. And I mean, it's going to be suppressive regardless. But yeah, 5 red dice and 3 white dice. And she surges to hit. And then if you were to take an aim, then you can dice fix with marksman. It's up to you, and she gets a free recover from it. So it's just tough. I liked to work around Iden more than anyone else, but that's just me. I think she's just such a good character. But yeah, that is the 9 activation list, giving you only 2 special forces. So if you did play Tac Strike, you'd obviously give it to Iden, Inferno Squad, and then with Entourage, the Death Troopers would automatically get in order, and then you'd have 2 other orders to give out. And so you could give them to both Shore Troopers, hopefully, who can be in range to coordinate to the mortars. So the only thing left in your bag would be Bossk and Krennic on Tactical Strike, because you're basically giving out a ton of orders. So yeah, that's really nice, and Bossk gains his independent from that. And yeah, and if you ever needed to, just Death Troopers, again, have comms relay, so if they needed to give an order from Entourage to Iden Versio, you can. Or if you needed to Entourage that order to Inferno Squad, that would be a good idea, because then Gideon also has Coordinate a Core Trooper. So maybe instead of, entouraging Death Troopers, they could comms relay to the Inferno Squad, giving the Inferno Squad an order, and then they can comms relay to, or not comms relay, but they can coordinate to the Shore Troopers, who can coordinate to a mortar. So now you've got fire support readily available with a mortar. So maybe then you shoot with Inferno Squad, his Del Mico. Maybe you're shooting at range, in range that the mortar can shoot. You're shooting 5 dice, 2 black, 3 white. It would be critical 1, and you do have possibly an aim, so then you can make it lethal. And yeah, that just makes for a fun little possibility. Or if Bossk were to, well, you already have Surge to crit on that one, and Suppressive. But yeah, I mean, that's just a little extra thing. But yeah, that is it. It's 9 activations, and let's go to Krennic, Callus, and Boba. So now let's get back to Callus and Krennic. So Krennic, again, with the same loadout of Improvised, Lead by Example, and Electric Binoculars for 96 points. Agent Callus with Tenacity, Environmental Gear, and the Bow Rifle to make him a little bit more aggressive on this one. You have Boba Fett with Up Close, Situational Awareness, and the Flame Projector to kind of just let him do things on his own and kind of be safe, because you're not going to really be giving him too many orders. You're only going to have 2 command cards of his in here. And then also you've got Contingency, which you can bring more if you wanted to, but for the most part, he's probably going to be taking that independent aim or dodge. And with Situational Awareness, hopefully keeping him alive a little bit longer at Up Close and Personal, and the things that he can do with Arsenal too. I like the Up Close and Personal, and I like this configuration to try to keep him alive a little bit more. I've got 2 Black Sun Enforcers fully loaded with the Magdet Enforcer and the Vigo to make them at least Courage 2 and a threat to whatever Force user wants to try to jump in close to you. And then you've got the 2 Shore Troopers with the T-21B and the Medical Droid. So you've got 2 Medical Droids and then the Mortar. And that's how you can also help either Callus whenever he gets, a wound. Your opponent has the ability to wind up playing this card, so the medics can hopefully help Agent Callus or Boba Fett if Boba Fett does get anything on him. And so at least you have 1 support commander, and then you've got a commander who's also going to be immune to Pierce with his bow rifle staff, because his bow rifle staff allows him to just be immune to melee Pierce without even having to spend a dodge. It's not duelist, but it's really nice. And then he does have lethal, which obviously can't be used against Force users, but it's still really nice to have. So he's like your big melee guy. You don't have Force Push, so you got to kind of be careful about that. But for the most part, if he goes after a Force user, you're probably going to want Face Me, because they can't withdraw at all. They can disengage, and they can Force push you out. But, if they didn't have the ability to recover their Force push in time, or if they didn't have it, or something like that happens, at least, they're going to be stuck. Or it's also great to use whenever you're trying to go after a hostage unit whenever the Force user is not around, because now that hostage unit can't just withdraw from you. That's just another little thing. But yeah, this is a fun, fully loaded gunline. The Black Sun Enforcers might not have the range, but if you kind of keep them near the back, there ain't no one going to your back line at all. And then your Shore Troopers and Mortars have the range, and then Boba Fett can just do his thing. And yeah, it's kind of a good little list. Whipcord Launcher is going to be able to try to stop any Jedi from coming in, and then Callus can just jump in after that. And then deploy the garrison can be given to either, Agent Callus or the shores, anything like that. Maybe if you didn't want to deploy the garrison, you could go with one of Boba Fett's 2 pips instead. And then you also still have contingency, at least. Also, Director Krennic and Agent Callus both have cunning. So no matter what, if you at least were to play Agent Callus's cards or Krennic's cards at the same time with the same pip as your opponent, then you're going to break that tie. So that's super, super nice. And then last but not least, let's go over Krennic, Moff, and Darks. So Director Krennic, I've given aggressive tactics, lead by example, and electric binoculars, and I'll explain why I've got aggressive tactics on Krennic. I've got Moff Gideon with improvised orders and the Darksaber, just in case there's an opponent with, a Force user, and they want to come after Moff Gideon. At least the Darksaber gives you immune to pierce, which, again, I really like when you're defending against a melee attack. And then Demoralize 1 is really, really nice, and the Pierce 1, again, is really nice. You've got 2 Dark Troopers that are kitted out with the Frag Launcher and the Assault Cannon and Programmed Loyalty, because you've got 2 commanders, and so for the most part, they're probably going to be near one of them. With Entourage on Moff Gideon, you're going to be able to give at least a Dark Trooper in order every single round, and then you've got a Snowtrooper with a medical droid, a Stormtrooper with a medical droid, and then a naked Stormtrooper unit, because that naked Stormtrooper unit can just go after whatever. And then these medical droids can just make sure that the core stay alive enough to be able to get the objectives completed. Yeah. And with the 2-pip, again, you're giving Krennic's deploy the garrison to the Dark Troopers. Now, you don't have to give them both to the Dark Troopers, because Entourage from Moff is going to give a Dark Trooper an order. And then one of the orders can go on the other Dark Trooper, so that both of them have an order. And you'd probably just have the 2 friendly trooper units that have face-up order tokens getting the standby. That would be the Darks. And you have one more order left, so that you could give that to either one of the Stormtroopers or Krennic or Moff Gideon, so that they can just have an order and go whenever they need to. And the reason I have Krennic have aggressive tactics is because you're probably going to nominate him majority of the time to give out orders, because you can use ambush from Krennic, and maybe give that to the Dark Troopers, and then one of them. And then with Entourage from Moff Gideon, the other Dark Trooper unit's going to gain an order. So now you've got 2 units with orders, so that aggressive tactics there's at least 2 units out of 4, so that's good. And then with Voracious Ambition, Orson Krennic doesn't need the Surge, but with the Entourage, again, maybe at least you give that Surge to the Dark Troopers, because he's the nominated commander. With Deploy the Garrison, you can give out those Surge tokens again to the Dark Troopers as they get their standbys. You have something I want, really, at least they're going to gain possibly an aim or a dodge with Program Loyalty, and rather than the Surge. And then the Moment of Consideration, they aren't going to get a Surge, but at least the Annihilation looms. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of your 6 cards from Krennic, and that's why I have the aggressive tactics on him for the Dark Troopers to get that extra Surge. Now, if you wanted to save a lot of points, obviously you don't have to have aggressive tactics. That would give you 19 more points to be able to do with what you want. So maybe if you wanted a little bit more on any of these guys, you could. So maybe if you wanted to make your Stormtroopers here a little bit more supportive, maybe you go with electric binoculars, and you have them just kind of follow the Dark Troopers and hand out an aim to one of the Dark Troopers before they go a second time, or even before they go a first time. And then you still have 11 points to kind of do with what you want. Maybe if you wanted to make Gideon a little bit more aggressive, maybe give him seize the initiative or offensive push, because if you didn't want ambush and you didn't want aggressive tactics, because you don't have aggressive tactics, if you wanted to bring Moff Gideon's 1-pip, that gives him Relentless. If you did have offensive push on him, you can tap that, move twice, gain 2 aims, and then you've got Relentless that you can get off, and probably do a lot of damage with 5 black dice, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Black dice are very, very finicky, so having those 2 aims could do a lot for you. But yeah, that's really it, and that would be technically 9 activations in the bag, 7 on the field. And I'm not going to lie, I've been enjoying fewer activations myself because it kind of gives you a little bit more in your list to do. As much as I'm a fan of 10 activations, I've been finding 9 still very good and 8 okay. I've been running a few different lists at 8 activations, and it is tight. You're very limited on your actions and what you can do. But overall, I think the units are a little bit better. So it's a little trade-off. And with the pass mechanic now, it just helps those 8 activation lists a lot. And hopefully, we kind of see the 8 or 9 activations more so than the 10. But then, in order to counter a lot, maybe you're going to start seeing higher activation lists because the stronger lists are becoming fewer activations. And then, so maybe you just... We've seen Ewok lists with 14 activations and 12 activations winning a lot. And they can complete the objectives, I feel like, sometimes a little bit better because you've got more bodies to deal with. And yeah, well, we'll save that for another time. But that is Krennic and a few different list ideas with him. I kind of like the Krennic and the Inquisitors a lot. Especially again because of that Enrage where his courage is null, and if you did have that where he was basically in melee or very close to melee, giving him that free standby and her the free standby could be really, really nice. And or again, if you were to be able to comms relay that order to the sister, and then having him with seize the initiative get an order, and then you've already got them without even handing out orders. You already got both Inquisitors getting in an order token. Yeah, it's really nice. But that's the only time I'd really run Krennic. All right, guys, if you like this video, please like it. Definitely subscribe. I don't really say that enough, but at the same time, I'm not doing this to gain subscribers. I'm doing this because I really love Legion and because I really want to help as many people out with list ideas as I can. But yeah, liking and subscribing is really nice, and I really appreciate it when people do. Like and subscribe. If you haven't again already headed to the Discord, head over there. And again, if you're working on projects, if you've got a finished project, it's really cool to kind of see Uncle Owen giving himself a mini that was painted and inspired by him. Looking at the different terrain tables is really cool. Raging again, being able to post his entire CIS army, super nice. You guys really do some amazing paint jobs, and it's cool to see, and that's why if you do commission work, please put it in there because I sometimes look for that. And yeah, if you got list for newer players, list help ideas, if you have a battle report, please post it in here. I always read the reports that people put out because it helps me to understand what works, what doesn't work sometimes, and or what units are doing really well, what aren't. So I usually always look at the Legion Bat reps. And then head on over to the Clan of Shadows Patreon, become a Patreon member, and get a shout out at the end of every video, as well as getting everything early. And it helps me with this channel to be able to do giveaways whenever I can. And it's going to help me to be able to try to find someone to play with and get them to play and not just, not play. We'll just leave it there. And then head on over to the Burn Academy for $15 a month. You can subscribe, download the app, and you're going to get 3, 4, 5, and 6-day workout programs and everything I've said earlier. It's such a great app, especially if you either don't know what you're doing or you're looking for a change of what you've done. This is a good little change up for you. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll end it there. Thank you guys for everything you do, and thank you to all of the Patreon members, Anthony, Kitsune, Emperor Atlantis, Daniel Padilla, and Tyson. You guys are awesome. Very awesome. Thank you guys so much for what you do. And I will leave it there. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great weekend.